As Tin said, this particular panel, just part of the description is a reliable, affordable, and a reliable, affordable power system depends on a resilient foundation of diverse baseload resources. That's kind of the headline for this group. And the panel we have here is a great diverse panel that's going to give us different insights, different thoughts, different things that they're hearing about how do you maintain reliability, resiliency, but then also balance it with affordability. So let me start with you, Tony, because Tony, you started talking about NARUC and some of the challenges of the regulators that you deal with. So from a regulatory and system planning perspective, how should decision makers prioritize investments across nuclear, natural gas, hydropower, and other baseload resources to maintain that reliability while keeping energy costs manageable as demand grows?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So, rule of thumb number one that you quickly find out when you get into the electricity regulatory business is there's no one answer everywhere around the country. It's very, very hard to paint with broad brushstrokes when you're dealing with a country as large as ours is, the different resource mixes, the different regulatory structures that exist around the country. So the short answer is it depends. Mm-hmm. The little bit longer answer is every regulator is going to need to look at the context in which their state exists and figure out what the best pathway forward. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest, they've got huge federal hydro projects that system is built around. That's going to be a different sort of baseload discussion in the Pacific Northwest than it's going to be in the Southeast, where a lot of the system, and increasingly, is being built around nuclear energy. That's going to be a very different discussion than parts of the country like my home region and the Northern Great Plains and the Upper Midwest, where there's a sort of traditional coal fleet combined with now a lot of wind, a lot of natural gas, and some nuclear. Really, everywhere around the country is going to have a little bit different answer to that, but it's really based on that sort of what's the natural resource mix that you have. And then number two is what's the regulatory construct in which you operate. If you are a state regulator in most of the West or much of the Southeast, and you're vertically integrated utilities operating outside of the ISOs or RTOs, you're probably going to be led to a different set of conclusions than a regulator like in the state that I was from, where it's still vertically integrated utilities, but operating within an organized market, which is going to be a different answer than those state regulators who are dealing with utilities that have been restructured and are now inside an RTO, and a lot of the decisions about resource mix are given to the market, to the RTO. So it's all a long way of saying it depends, but regulators are going to need to really understand the particular context that they're in so that they can make good decisions based on the records that are built in front of them.
Great, thank you, John. And really, any of the panelists, just to add on, any other comments or thoughts?
I just want to add on to that market structure piece that Tony started to talk about. For all of us energy nerds in the room, there's a lot of conversation now about the calamity and chaos and sort of everything that's happening in the PJM market, which is the market that's from right where we are up to just outside New York City and New Jersey, and then over west all the way to Chicago. It's the biggest wholesale market in the world. And there are a bunch of very real challenges with, in part, state policies that are requiring for the retirement of electric generating stations, and then also just this huge surge of data centers that is leaving that region of the country sort of woefully short of the power that it needs. And so one of the trends that you're beginning to see is a number of the utilities that have been deregulated or restructured over time are now starting to suggest that, hey, we need power plants built right now. The price of power is far too high because there's not adequate supply. And so these utilities within this region are beginning to suggest that, hey, maybe this whole thing that we've tried with deregulation isn't working as well as we would like. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to offer legislation. This is in Pennsylvania. In Maryland, the bill failed. In Pennsylvania, there's another piece of legislation. We've seen it kind of all across the country to just look at maybe bringing back some of those regulated elements to ensure that customers are not as exposed to the high cost, because this affordability crisis is real. And when data centers with unlimited balance sheets are trying to buy power, they're going to get it. So how do we sort of create a policy and patchwork quilt so that regular customers don't get smoked in that deal?
Right, right. Any other comments? Yeah, go.
From a different perspective, if I look at it from the nuclear perspective, because of course that's what I represent, but we are where we are now because of decisions that were made 10 years ago, right? And so where do we want to be? Nuclear is a very long-term play. We're very capital intense, but long-term wise, we're clean, we're low cost, and we run 24/7, 365.